Ready Check Radio. What's up, Internet? It's Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That means here on Ready Check Radio, it's time for the Relic Grind, our Final Fantasy XIV Square Enix podcast, episode 90. 10 away from 100 of these damn things already. Holy hell. I know, right? I'm your host, Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man, as always. And as mentioned, this is episode 90. If you're listening on iTunes, Audible, wherever, or watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Give us a like, a thumbs up, a positive review, comments there. Feed the algorithms. But most importantly, if you like what we do, tell a friend. You can head on over to the website right at the bottom of the screen, readycheckradio.com. In the upper right's all the socials, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. Go follow those. You'll know when we're going live with what, whether it's a streamer or a podcast. And you could hang out in our chat and talk live with us. Joining me to go over all the news this week in the world of Square Enix, Mr. Chris Montoya, a.k.a. Tarkoth. What's up, sir?
Greetings, programs. All I want to say is, lottery's almost up. Just a few more hours to go. Don't bid on my plot, okay? I want my house. Don't bid on my plot. I'm the only one. Leave it alone.
You're the only one on your plot right now?
Yes, sir. It's a large.
There you go. Congratulations. Hey. Congratulations. Hopefully, people are going to snipe it. That's what's happening.
I'm looking at it right now. Lottery number 1. That's it.
eBay snipers. That's what's going on. Also on the line, Adam Lane. What's up, Kronos?
What's going on? Yeah, they do wait till the end. We had the one next to our house, and I think it was at like 2. And then like the last day it went up to like 100 or something. So just keep an eye on it. I hope good luck. I hope you get it.
I hope you do too. Yeah. I'm fine with my medium house. Like, I had the opportunity for a large, because I've had it for years and years, but had the opportunity for the large, and I was like, I don't decorate housing in MMOs enough to really spend the gil. I could spend this on other things. So I'm just going to get with the medium house. Yeah. Good luck. I mean, I know Fusion is, I think, still looking for a house too, and is all anxious from the lottery. So all of our friends here at Ready Check Radio, we wish you well in your housing lottery endeavors. Obviously, not a lot of news this week in the world of Final Fantasy XIV with 6.3 just coming out last week. All three of us had pretty much burned through most of the key content and talked about that on last week's episode. So if you want our thoughts on the MSQ, the Alliance Raid, any of that content, head on over and watch last week's show. You can find them on readycheckradio.com and on YouTube and all the podcast places. But one thing we didn't talk about, and we did touch on it the week before when we were kind of reviewing the patch notes, and we had little snippets of or the live letter, and we had little snippets of things. Now that it's been a week, I know, I personally don't care because I don't roll these classes, but it is always interesting to watch them. I know Mr. Montoya, the Tarkoth one, does want to kind of dive into a little bit with the Paladin changes. So now that we've had some of the reworks for Paladin, Warrior, tanks, and things like that, what are you seeing a week and a half into the patch here, Tark?
I think we went offline here.
You're fine. Just go.
Okay. Yeah, it's some meaty changes. The Paladin rework was pretty significant. They still kept it the same kind of aesthetic, but now they're in that homogeneous burst window meta, 1 minute, 2 minutes. So, but they did get some defensive buffs, which I thought was pretty significant, and quite a few changes. And Machinist surprisingly got. Well,
we'll get to the other classes. I mean, the big ones were the Warriors, or the tanks. So we'll come back to the minor changes across the board. Else. Let's stick to the tanks, though. Kronos, what are you seeing with some of your friends that tank? I know you don't really main a tank unless you're just helping me clear some stuff, being bored.
I'd take DSR.
Well, all right. I stand corrected then. I
was Dark Knight in there. I'm not a huge fan of the Paladin rework. I think it was kind of lazy, personally.
How so?
Just feels relatively the same. They're still like, I think they cut buttons from like other classes, but like then they just don't do it with others. And I think Paladin's in a weird one. They got some nice defensive stuff. I think that's much better. But like, I don't think they really got any more interesting than they already were, as opposed to like other reworks that we had, where I feel like some things changed and there was like some stuff to learn and like some interesting like intricacies. Whereas this is just like, I don't know, like they turned Goring Blade into just a button you hit once a minute for damage. It does less damage than Blasting Zone. So it's like kind of weird. I think they're probably in a better spot just because now it'll be easier to balance them all together. But I like the defensive changes. I wish they had taken a little bit more risks with the DPS changes just to like make them more interesting. But it felt like maybe they wanted to kind of try to stay true to the old rotation, but it's still not the old rotation. They also like, I find it weird that they would design a skill that gives you several stacks, but you drop them on purpose because it's better. That just feels like bad design to me. So I hope they like address that, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it, to be honest. Like the Paladin rework in general. The other changes I think are great in the patch, but I was hoping for more.
Let's start with your white mage, guys. Your white mage. Your ass size has been decreased. I mean, I guess that's good. Like, you lose weight and your ass size goes down a few times. Now it's decreased to 40 seconds. Noticing the difference out there, Tark?
The problem with the size is they still need they need a stack. They need a stack of a size. So
you always stack ass size, like always.
Anyways, they need to get a second usage out of it so that you can maybe hold it for a heal, but right now you're just blowing it on DPS. So if they can
get three stacks, do you call it thick at that point?
Yes.
Like if the ass size has 3 stacks, then you have a thick debuff or a thick buff.
Yeah. But right now it's just 1. So let's just get it to 2. How about that?
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere. Sage.
Yes.
Sage changes for you guys. I know you want to talk about these, Tark.
Oh my god. I've been saying since I started raiding with Sage that can we just get Phlegma down to 40 seconds? Because then I can use 1 and then I can save 2 for the burst window, and it would feel a lot better to like double Phlegma. And they finally did it. I'm so thrilled. But that took away some of its movement abilities because you're saving it for burst windows. And that I think that was their intention, that you can use Phlegma for movement. Well, to counteract that, now whenever I have a group shield and it expires through damage on myself, I get an adder sting for more Toxicon. So that gives me back my movement, and it kind of also, in a roundabout way, makes the mana efficiency of my group shields better because now I have a mana-free DPS usage. So I'm flooded with Toxicons because I play heavy on shielding. So I'm thrilled with Sage. It's awesome.
Feeling the same, Kronos?
Yeah, I think both those changes are really good. Especially the adder sting change, honestly. I think that's probably the most important one in my opinion. It's going to matter a lot in Ultimate, I think. The fact that they're going to get an extra movement ability every time they shield during downtime. And they don't have to like triple shield to try to get them all back. So I think it's a nice change.
There are some other changes. I don't want to turn this into a let's review every little change show. I think we got a much more interesting topic coming up. Obviously Riddle of Earth nerfed on the monks, some Dragoon timing, bards and stuff. But I do feel like, Tark, I said, hey, I'll let you get back to it. You want to talk Machinist because the Wrench Mage is back, baby.
Wrench Mage is back. So they got some more utility, dropping damage on that, throw that wrench, get that animation going. Yeah, feels good. But I think the bigger change to them was finally moving hypercharge and that heat, mechanic to stacks now and extending the timer. So now you don't have to worry so much about your ping being god awful. You should be able to get your 5 stacks without running out of time. And then they extended Wildfire to, I think, 6 stacks. Is that right?
It blows up at 6, yeah.
It blows up 6. So now your Wildfire hits harder too. So that coupled with the potency increases, Machinist is in a much better place.
So I gotta ask this, like, and this like goes back to other changes we've seen in maybe the distant past in some of these examples, though. When you see timers on buffs extended or parts of buffing yourself or allies during a rotation being key to that class's identity and their own personal rotation, then you see them kind of, I mean, in some cases, literally patched out, right? Like Black Mage Enochian, right? I mean, that used to be critical timing, popping that at the right time, making sure you kept those stacks up, getting your things. Okay, now it's off a cooldown. Boom, do it again. Like, it was critical. There was a huge difference between an average player Black Mage and a higher tier Black Mage and a 1% Black Mage in how they dealt with the minutia, keeping Enochian up. When's the right time to cast it? When's the time to use your double cast? And so, again, going back to the past and working our way forward. When you see that type of stuff happen, and some of these updates, even for Machinists, kind of feel the same way, opening the windows up a little bit, giving a little more time for things like that. Does that make you feel in any way, Kronos, that like the jobs start to lose their challenge almost to play? Not that you can't readily see the difference between an average Black Mage and a good Black Mage, or an average Paladin and a good Paladin. But when you start, okay, you know what? You don't have to click the Enochian button anymore. And we're going to do this. And with the timers, does it start to feel like, are we building the classes to the lowest common denominator? And is that really what we should do in an MMO? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not decided at the moment. But what do you think?
I mean, you're talking to someone who probably prefers Heavensward job design. So, I agree with that to an extent. This is obviously their goal, though. I don't necessarily disagree with it. It lets people like get into the game easier, or at least get into like the harder content much easier.
And it's hard to argue with, hey, you have 14 million players, build it around the 12.5 million players that are your average casual players. Like, I can't fault them for that at all.
Yeah. I definitely personally miss like the more like, for lack of a better term, like riskier gameplay where like when you messed up, you like felt it more. When you mess up now, you kind of just move on. And you can mess up kind of bad, but it won't like affect you that bad for most jobs, especially now after the Paladin change. Paladin probably was the one left where like when you messed up, it felt horrible. And now it doesn't feel that way anymore.
Like 2 minutes.
Right. And to Cal bringing up the usual point, right, is of tune it to Raiders. Is that what you're talking about? No, I'm not saying tune it to Raiders, but if you think back to Enochian or harder rotations in general, you were still able to clear the normal dungeons, the normal trials, and in some cases, the extreme trials with no real problems besides learning the mechanics and learning the fight, whether you had a top-tier rotation or just an average rotation. The minutia that I'm talking about really came into play for those more difficult pieces of content, the ultimates and stuff like that, where you needed a Black Mage that could fire. And that was it. So having the harder rotations for me wasn't like, oh, let's tune the game to the Raiders. No. You were still able to clear all the casual content with those rotational penalties that you're talking about, Kronos. It wasn't going to cost you the fight in a dungeon or in a trial or anything like that. So I think you can have both. You can have a riskier, maybe a little more complex rotation without these kind of, all right, we're going to take these out and take these out, and still cater towards giving Kronos a little more challenging rotation that pays off in the ultimate challenge of content. But if you're not great at that, or you don't feel like learning it, or you're fine for the normal content anyway.
I think also, just in my personal opinion, you can have jobs designed in a way where, like, for the people that don't want to put that, like, you can have different.
Okay, hold on. I gotta interrupt you. Okay. Fence sitter, fuck you. There is nothing that I just said that is fence sitting. I literally just said you can build this both ways, and AKA they have. It was this way at one point. You can have both without sacrificing a more casual player's experience, maybe not wanting to delve into learning the rotation to that degree, and providing a more challenging / riskier rotation that pays off only in real dividends in the harder content that the more casual person isn't going to do anyway.
I would say Heavensward and to an extent Stormblood was like that, and Shadowbringers is where you start to sell like.
Cal and I are going to arm wrestle after this show.
Yeah, Shadowbringers is where they move more toward like we want to keep everything kind of in line with each other, which I get because the more jobs you add to the game, you don't. Because my biggest thing when I say all this because I prefer the jobs to play that way, but at the same time, I don't want a job to be shunned from a piece of content, which I think is also part of their goal for what they're doing now. And when you have jobs that are like vastly different, and you keep adding 2 jobs, 3 jobs every expansion, it becomes really, really hard to meet that goal. But if you keep them relatively, similar, it's a lot easier to rein them in and keep them playable. Or like, I don't want to say playable because they're all playable. They've all been playable with the maybe like 2 or 3 exceptions. But like to keep them like in line so that people aren't upset over how big of a difference it is. But I also think even when you go back to Heavensward and stuff like that, you could have jobs that were on the easier side, and like players could go to those jobs if they don't want to necessarily put in the extra to like, for example, like you could play like Heavensward, I don't know, monk or something, as opposed to playing like Heavensward machinist who had to do like rocket science. Like you don't have to like go all the way to the other extreme. There's like you can go to the other job.
And I've played other MMORPGs over the last, 20 plus years where it's like, okay, that's not exactly the best beginner class, Tark. You know, I understand you want to do range magic, but X class is not exactly the best beginner class, where you don't really have that in Final Fantasy. Are some jobs arguably at a higher level, harder than others? Sure. When you start hitting the ultimates and things like that, there are jobs that have advantages. Some are easier, a little bit harder. Fine, I'll give you that. But for the overwhelming glut of content in Final Fantasy XIV, I just feel like maybe it misses a little something where there isn't that, hey, that's a little harder job. Maybe start with this one, but 12.5 million or whatever the number is now. Who knows? The actual numbers.
Yeah.
I get it, but I just worry that you get to a point where it feels like homogenized, right? Where what class do you want to play? Pick whichever one looks pretty to you. Well, wait a minute. It shouldn't feel that way. Like I want the classes to feel very, unique. Very different and unique. Yeah.
No, I get both of your guys' points, and I do feel that they're, every once in a while you get a job that just gets a little bit out there when it's with its skill ceiling. Let's take Summoner in point. To play Summoner in Shadowbringers was just this mind-bending, like, all right, I got a 20, input rotation that I got to max out to get that, best DPS to really make myself feel valid in this piece of content. And now they've, lowered the floor and lowered the ceiling with the current iteration of Summoner. I find Summoner to be a lot of fun, though. I like its identity at where it is. But I do fear, things like Dragoon right now, I think are in that spot where, you have, 10 buttons you could press for your rotation, plus all this off global cooldown stuff. And I kind of fear for it in 7.0 because I know they're going to rework it there. And I fear that they're going to do a Summoner job where they're going to lower that ceiling and the floor and the ceiling to make it more approachable.
Yeah.
So
now to Cal in chat, maybe we don't have to arm wrestle because he is absolutely right about this.
He'd whoop you anyway. So
yeah. And Kronos, you had mentioned this too, that unfortunately, whether you like them or not, raids play a huge role in this. It's that absolute unwillingness to let a class fall out of raid viability.
Yeah.
That leads to this type of design. Baron Vagabond bringing up a good point in chat too, that the game, and we've talked about this on the show before too, in other contexts, but in the context of job management here, the game does a wonderful job of onboarding you and showing you the ropes and giving you the tooltips and the green notification symbol on every single thing. But it really does not do a good job of saying, all right, you are at the max tier of your power. Here's how you can up it even more to take on the next challenges. There really isn't a nice learning curve for jumping from, an extreme trial to an Unreal, or to an Ultimate, I mean. There just isn't. It's you're at the mercy of going and watching community videos if you want to take that leap. And there's great videos out there that'll help you do it, but there's nothing in the game. Baron Vagabond, absolutely right there. Absolutely right there.
Yeah, I agree with that. It sucks. I mean, but the thing is, I don't know. Like, I think they do a good job for the most part of balancing.
They do.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, it does suck a little bit, but at the same time, I just don't want to see like, I mean, it happened this last patch, not 0.3, but 0.2, where like you saw party finders, where like people were like, no machinists.
Ostracizing
no
classes.
And I think that's what you definitely don't want. So like that, I think that's their reasoning for doing it this way. So it kind of sucks that we saw it so recently, but
yeah,
I think that's really it.
It doesn't always work. All right, let's talk about some other Square Enix news. I mean, I feel like you all know what's coming if you've been watching the news on the Final Fantasy front this past week. So this rumor started on 4chan, from my knowledge, made its way to Reddit and Twitter. I'm going to be reading from Ann Spacewise or Ann Spacey's Twitter. Andy kind of just posted the whole 4chan thing up. We know it's Final Fantasy's 35th anniversary, right, this year. We also know that the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth team has mentioned that there was going to be another big Final Fantasy announcement that had nothing to do with Final Fantasy VII. And we kind of speculated that that might be the Final Fantasy IX remake from the no, don't believe this NVIDIA leak. These are just placeholders that we came up with for testing stuff, but every single one of those games so far, with the exception of 3 or 4, have been confirmed or flat out released by now. So we know that that's a thing. Well, this rumor speculates on a presentation coming up. Received orders from the FIGS translation of the Final Fantasy Anniversary presentation happening on February 7th. I'm not green texting this. Press is getting early access to announcements on February 22nd. The runtime will be 1 hour and 24 minutes, and it'll open with a Final Fantasy history presentation. So maybe the date and stuff like that changes and stuff like that, but I think this is a fairly safe rumor, right? There's going to be a 35th anniversary presentation at some point. It'll probably have a lot in it, so 1 hour and a half or so doesn't feel all that ridiculous, and it would open with a Final Fantasy history presentation. That makes total sense. It's an anniversary celebration. Where we get to the rumors portion of this, besides this presentation existing, is what's going to be shown off there. So we're going to take these one at a time as they appear in the rumor, gents, and let's 1 to 10 scale it on the is this true or not. 0, not a chance in hell. 10, this is absolutely happening. The first one is the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Oh, wait, 10. That already happened. They're getting ready to ship. They're going to show a promotional video. Okay, so far so good. This is how you make a good rumor, by the way, if this is totally fake. You put some nuggets of truth in.
Put the facts in, yeah.
Theatrhythm Final Bar Line promotional video, that's already confirmed as well. We've known about that for a while. Hironobu Sakaguchi presents the Final Fantasy IX remake.
Ooh.
And that it's coming this fall. I don't know, Tark. I don't know. By the way, this entire thing reads like an absolute teenage Final Fantasy wet dream, right? Like, yes. it's an absolute wish list. But Final Fantasy IX remake, Hironobu Sakaguchi involved in the presentation with a date of this fall.
This is the one that piqued my interest the most. I would give it a 7. I would give it a 7 that this is true. I'm hopeful.
And coming this fall?
We heard about the NVIDIA leak so long ago. What was it, almost 2 years ago? A year and a half? 2 years?
I feel like this would have been leaked all over the place by now. Yeah. Screenshots, voice actor stuff, something.
Maybe. I'm very hopeful for this one. This one, I put in at a 7.
What do you got, Kronos?
Can I rate them separately, the fall part and the remake being real?
Yeah, because I'm going to do the same thing.
Okay, because this fall, that's like a 2. There's
Yeah.
no way it's this far.
Yeah,
But
I
9
thought so
remake,
too.
I'll give like an 8, 7 or 8. I think that
I
is
actually, yeah, I think I would give it a little more if I'm going to break them apart. I'd probably put it at a 9, almost a 10. At this point, that's got to be an absolute thing. There's just too much true in the NVIDIA leak for this to have been a fluke.
There's no, well, just on like what we kind of know already.
If it came out in fall, I'd be stunned and very happy, but I'm going to put that at like a 2 or a 3 too.
If I was breaking them apart, like, you know, with the NVIDIA leak and all that stuff, I would put it at a 9, and the fall part I would put it at 0. Like,
okay.
I was melding them together to make a 7.
All right, fair enough.
Like the thing is like we know 7 remake is like slated for late winter. If this came out in the fall and then that comes out, there's just that to me already rules it out.
Sandwich, you know, after 14 expansion and Final Fantasy 16.
Although if it is this fall, if this is true, that makes me think it's not a full-on remake. That personally, that's just because we would have seen it by now. If this is like a full-on remake and it's coming out fall, but if it's like just has the word remake in it,
I mean, if it was coming out in fall, pre-orders would go live in like probably February to March. So I still give fall the low score, but I feel like the 9 remake is absolutely a thing. It's just a question of when at this point. World of Final Fantasy II, A Mog of Light, May 19th, 2023.
God, like I felt like they should have announced this like a month ago or so. You know, like this is coming up in 4 months. You should have been promoting this and advertising this already.
But World of Final Fantasy just kind of fell out too. It was just like, hey, this is coming out so 2 months later. Here it is. It is a fun game. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'm amazed if they're doing another one, honestly, because it didn't really sell all that well. So it's not exactly the type of game that needs a full Final Fantasy PR media blitz. And honestly, I kind of hated Lon.
The main characters are not good,
Yeah,
but the gameplay is fun.
The
gameplay is fun though.
It is. I would like to see this. I don't. It may make sense because I don't think they need a huge blitz ahead of it. But it's also one that May 19th is literally 4 months from today. I feel like we would have seen something.
That's what I was
like
saying.
A little trailer, a little confirmed in development. Not even showing us the game, Tark, but like this is in development. We would have seen it on a slate somewhere, if nothing else. I'm going to put this one at like a 4. I don't think this one, particularly combined with May 19th, I'd be kind of surprised if they were making this. I don't think the first one sold very well, and you know how Square is on did not meet expectations, Kronos.
Yeah, I feel like, though, even when it doesn't meet expectations, that doesn't mean they're not going to make a sequel to it, because they do that. But
or they sell that company, but you know,
I can see this one springing up. I'll say a 6 because I can see it. But this is another one I think that's on the weird side. But like, I don't know. I think that game getting a sequel is fine. It's just weird that you would release it 4 months from now and not say anything about it.
By the way, if everything on here is true, combined with everything we know is going to be released from Square this year, it is like the busiest year for Square Enix, like ever.
Kind of save up the money to get the NFTs.
Right.
Yeah.
Tark?
I'm gonna separate it again. I think the title itself is like a 6 or a 7, but the date, like, just because they haven't promoted it at all, and I know you think that they don't need a big push for it, but the date just I'm gonna put that at a 3.
Just because does anybody remember them promoting the first one? Because I really don't. Now that I think about it, I feel like the game just kind of came out and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you might be right.
Like I said, it was. That's why I said earlier. I said they ran some trailers and then it was out like a month or so later. It was. It wasn't huge thing. Stories from Ivalice: War of the Lions slated for summer 2023. I feel like if you're gonna go that route, they probably do the Tactics remake, right? And this would be the PSP. Is that what it was for?
Well, I don't know what this is.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, is this a brand new one? Is this a brand new War of the Lions, Stories of Ivalice thing? Or is this slight rename of a Tactics War of the Lions remake?
Yeah.
I feel like it couldn't be. If you were going to do something new here, I feel like you go with Tactics first as a remake, because there's a whole generation that has no idea what Ivalice is, provided they haven't played Final Fantasy XIV.
I feel like the fact that Final Fantasy Tactics, I feel like the fact that like Final Fantasy Tactics isn't in this name anywhere, leads me to believe that it's like adjacent, like, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's Final Fantasy Tactics, but not a tactical game, which would make me very sad. If that makes sense, because like it just feels like kind of deliberate with the wording. Like, I know War of the Lions is the PSP game,
right?
And War of the Lions is also just like the war that was in the original game. So it's like, is this just like a different way to play the story of Tactics? That's where my mind goes. I don't know if that's true. It's hard to say. I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I'm not going to make us score this one since it's kind of hard to tell exactly what they're doing here. The next one, though, Final Fantasy X-3, they're going to show off as now being in development.
Can I go back just for a second, because I didn't give my opinion? What was banded about in my raid team is that maybe this is like the start of a compilation of like remasters. So you get War of the Lions. Maybe they mess with Vagrant Story. I was like, oh my god, that would be amazing. And then they have the two DS games, the Tactics Advance, that they could remaster and put on Switch. I'm like, that's very interesting. I don't think that's necessarily true.
I was gonna say, I think that's more wishful thinking than this rumor is. There's no way they're touching Vagrant Story ever again, sadly. Final Fantasy X-3 expected in this rumor to be confirmed in development. Now,
talked about it before.
Yeah, and Business Creative Unit 1 has said things like they have the story penned. They really want to do it, and there's voice actor stuff. And to me, X-3, this is another one of those nuggets of truth type deal. X-3 is going to come at some time, whether you want it to or not. I don't know if it's going to be confirmed at a presentation this year or not. Flip a coin, as far as I'm concerned. Will we see it at some point? Probably. Have some people been working on it here and there? Yeah, I'd even give you that. I know Creative Unit 1's wanted to do it for a while. At least their leadership has. But honestly, X-2 was, I'd rather them do something new, I think, personally. But I think we will see this at some point.
I'll give it a 3.
A 3? An X-3?
I see what you did there. Zing! Got me. I don't care. I think it's just a decade too late. if that, maybe even more. I think the story's all wrapped up. I don't see, and if they have a great story, bring it. That'd be awesome.
Is it really a decade too late though? Because they did release the 10.10.2 HD remaster, which would have introduced that to a new generation.
I don't know. I'm gonna stick with my 3. I don't see many people, clamoring for this. Maybe it's just an internal thing that they really want to do it, and they have a really good story. And if they do, awesome. But I don't see the need for it. So,
Kronos,
I really hope it's a 0.
See, I'm not that down on it. I loved 10, and I was even okay with 10.2. I love the battle system in 10.2, by the way.
I love 10. I love 10. I like the way 10 ended. I don't like 10.2 story like at all. Battle system is really good though. It's worth like playing just for that. I don't need this story to continue. It's like, I don't know. It just feels like it gets worse progressively. The story, at least, the more they add to this.
Like 13.2 and 13.3.
It might even be worse than that additive stuff. But the thing is, 13 did start off very strong. So who really cared? But I think we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. That's why we got to finish this up real quick.
Yeah, I could see it though, so I'll give it like a 4 or 5. But I really hope this is the thing on the list. It's not true. So,
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they'll get a new trailer, Memories. Final Fantasy XVI will announce a focal presentation scheduled for March 24th. I don't think either of those are out of the realm of possibility.
no.
Those seem like normal marketing things. Final Fantasy on the online front, 11 and 14 will get subscription Unity project this fall. I'm amazed we don't already have it. I've been pushing for this forever, which means it's never going to happen. They've legitimately said over and over that the payment systems just don't allow them to do that, particularly the way Play Online's payment system works there. We have always said, then change your payment system. Like, this isn't hard.
Mm-hmm.
Change your payment system. You're the ones that flag accounts for paid or not. Pull your payment system apart, put a new one in there. I'd love it to happen. I think I got to be pessimistic about it, even though my heart wants it to happen, and say that I don't think it's going to happen. I think they would have done it by now, right? As like beneficial as I think it would be,
yeah,
to give somebody on playing 14 somewhere to jump into and try out that maybe isn't me, right? I go there play for nostalgia reasons or need a break from 14, but somebody that's never played that is like, no, I'm not paying a sub for that. Okay, I'll pay $4 extra on my 14 sub and have something to do in between patches and check out.
Sure.
I just feel like they would have done it by now. If they thought there was that much benefit the way I do, they would have done it.
I agree with you. And as a standalone item, I put it at a 0. But if you tie it in with the next point,
the Final Fantasy XI Beginnings rework project for this fall.
Yeah, if you tie it to that, if the second one is true, then the first one's absolutely true. So it's like, I think the reworks project has to come first. If that is true, then this.
Well, remember there was the whole mobile thing that they were doing, rework, and then that got canceled with a partner. Yeah,
all that stuff. So right now, this particular point 0, but if the second point is true, then 10.
Kronos?
I'll give it a 2, I guess.
Just so it's not a 0.
Yeah, I don't think it's
could happen.
I don't think it's like super outside the realm of possibility, but I feel like I do agree with y'all. I think it would have happened by now if that were the case. I hope that if they do this, they actually fix their website and make it like easier to do things on it as part of this.
Yeah, and obviously I would love the rework project to be a thing too. I just feel like, unless they canceled that and brought all that internally and finished it off themselves, it's one of those things that like that would have been perfect as last year's 20th anniversary of Vana'diel big surprise announcement, which never really came, remember? Yeah. Naoki Yoshida going to give a 14 Realm Reborn anniversary thing. Makes sense here. And then a couple mobile things. We're going to skip those. All in all, do you think the rumor itself is true? Are we getting a presentation on February 7th? And will it contain all of these goodies here, Tark? Or is this, like I said, a teenage Final Fantasy fanboy's wet dream wish list of, please, Daddy Square, do this?
It is absolutely a wet dream to the point where even I was like, oh, yeah, this is good. So
I will thank you never to do that on my show again.
Do I think there's going to be a presentation? Yes. Do I think this good list is going to be all there? No.
I think Kronos, you and I are in the same boat, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. We already know Sakaguchi said they're going to announce something big. Square likes their presentations. Maybe we'll get like 4 hours. It wasn't
Sakaguchi that said that. It was a producer of Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, it's Nomura.
Nomura.
Yeah, okay, I thought it was Sakaguchi for some reason. Okay, Nomura. Yeah.
Hey, just a quick update on something we talked about last week, a Dragon Quest mobile thing being announced, and we didn't know what it was. It is Dragon Quest Champions. It's going to be out for iOS and Android. It's going to be a closed beta this February. The way they're billing it is a command battle RPG that you can play solo. Familiar command-style battle systems, a.k.a. menu-based. Players will aim to win tournaments of wisdom and courage against various enemies to become a true hero. In tournament mode, up to 50 players will battle in real time, fight fair and square, run away, or even barge your way into other people's fights, obtain the title of champion by your own method. I'm sure this won't be aggressively monetized or pay to win at all.
I'm glad that they're putting all of the turn-based games on mobile. It really makes me happy.
Yeah,
they do that.
Exactly.
You can play it anywhere. You can play it anywhere.
Yay!
As long as you got a signal.
Yay! All right,
and then they can cut it off. They can cut it off in a year. You can't play it at all.
Less than a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forspoken news. We're just a few days away from Forspoken, and obviously the PR campaign is starting to wind down as we lead into the review portion. Now, here's the thing. I actually saw on Twitter today that the review embargo date is like the day before launch is when the reviews can be published, and that's fine. Yeah. But that PC codes still haven't been received by people reviewing the game as of this afternoon. Now, maybe that's changed this evening, and if so, fine. But this is an open world game that they now have basically 4 days to review. And reaching out to other streamers, there is a story about a YouTube, Twitch streamer that kind of lambasted Square Enix very publicly. Credit to Xpooter here on the story. Milady Confetti shared details of her being offered a deal with Square Enix to make Forspoken content. And none of this is new, right? That's how a lot of this works. And if you're watching good streamers, they will tell you sponsored or paid for or whatever when they're playing that content. And so she quoted them. African-American woman, game with an African-American lead. She was also the one we talked about a few months ago where she said she met the whole team and was a little concerned that there weren't any black writers on the team writing for a black female main character. Little weird. Well, they reached out and said, hey, you make content. She quoted some rates to them, and they offered her 70% less than what she originally quoted to them. So she felt slighted, obviously, by the low come-in rate. She gave them the rate, and they came in with 70% less. That's not... You can't even negotiate at that point. Like, if you go to the table and somebody comes in 70% lower, then this just was not meant to be.
I think it's just better to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if Square got her number, she doesn't share her number, at least I haven't seen it, and they said, that's just way too much. Just thank you for your time. Well, here's 30% of what you asked for. And then, you're going to end up with a video like this. We're watching the trailer here. This is the PC features trailer. And if you plan to play this on PC, that looks dope. Awesome. All these great things. Have you seen the specs for this, Kronos?
Square Enix PC strikes again. Yeah, I already saw this. This is like all everybody's talking about.
Holy hell.
Yeah. To get that magical 60 frames per second, you need a beast of a machine. And not just like from a year ago, like from the last 6 months.
Here's the recommended spec.
Yeah, you did pretty good.
Just for recommended. This is just the recommended PC specs. 24 gigs of RAM, an RTX 3070 or better, and an SSD, and you're still only going to hit 30 frames per second. If you want to get 4K resolution and or 60 frames per second, so not 4K 60, one or the other or both. If you just want to play this at 1080 and 60 frames, Square Enix is suggesting that you need an RX 6800 XT or an RTX 4080, 32 gigs of RAM, and an NVMe SSD, and a pretty recent CPU. Holy balls. By the way, this thing's only going to run between 30 and 40 frames on the PS5, too.
Yeah. Do all y'all have a 30 series? Or no?
I have a 3080.
I have a 3090.
Yeah. I still feel like
3080. Yeah, 3080.
I have a 3070, and I feel like that's still not even that common. So, like, the fact that that's recommended is kind of... And then I still, even on top of these specs, I still don't trust it's going to run correctly.
I kind of feel like that's why the PC codes for reviewers haven't gone out yet. I just have like this pessimistic hunch that, yeah, they're trying to shore up some performance issues on those PC. I mean, that is super high. I forget. I wish I could remember who said this on Twitter so I could give them credit, but they were like, yeah, I think it was Yong Ye. Maybe the meme now goes, yeah, but can it run Crysis? Now becomes, yeah, but can it run Forspoken?
Yeah. I mean,
God.
I mean, 30 series, it's like, you can get them, but like, they're still like, I don't know, man. Most people don't have those. Most people do not.
Yeah, they came out like in the last 2 years. So like,
are those really that high to get just 60 frames per second? Yes. Those are absolutely high if you are just looking for a 60 frames per second PC game at normal HD. You're only getting 30. The recommended or the minimums, they're fine. Like, as long as you're fine with playing at 30, I don't think the minimums are outrageous. They're a little higher than minimums, but we're moving forward with, new engines, and this is their proprietary engine and stuff. So the recommended to get just 60 frames per second being in the 40 series of graphics cards, yeah, that's high, along with all the other specs you need.
I mean, they're going to, with those specs, if people actually have, like, people that have those specs, if this game launches and they play it and it still has bad performance, they're going to get crushed.
They're going to, yeah. Square's going to absolutely get slaughtered if the PC performance on this is on par with Square's PC performance usually.
Yeah.
So, well, also the point that, knowing the frames per second and playing the demo, I'm no longer getting this day one. I'm going to wait for sale. Like, when it comes down to 40, maybe I'll pick it up. But
I'm waiting for reviews on this one hard, and I have been for a while.
I'm waiting on reviews too.
It's sad, too, because I like the open world design. I've liked the combat trailers. We've all said, getting more and more interested in this as it goes along, but I just have to step back. You own it, and you got a 6900 XT, 64 gigs, and 50. Yeah, I mean, then you're going to be fine. But the fact that you need that to get a 60 frames per second stable performance, that's abnormally high. And as somebody that owns that, you should recognize that's high. Because your computer should just demolish everything on the market. But if you want some Forspoken gear, gentlemen, you can get that. So we've got
some of these items look pretty cool.
I know, right? We got a denim jacket. We've got T-shirts. We've got some pins. In the picture here, there's a sweatshirt, but you can't actually order the sweatshirt yet. I wasn't able to find that anywhere. There's links to everything else.
I just found out that sweatshirt was released at 1 a.m. in the morning and no one knew about it.
It's already sold out. It's already sold out. It comes with the Pixel Remaster bundle. The T-shirts, if you want one of those T-shirts, those are going to run you $30 USD and up. If you like the look of the denim jacket, that's $110 USD and up. And if you like those little badge icons, that set of 4 that you see in the image there, that's $30. $30. So it was immediately one of those things. Yeah, our denim jacket's still a thing. It was immediately one of those things that I was like, oh, those look pretty. Nope.
Just at least be thankful it's out of the Square Enix store. You'd be paying double.
Well, so it may not be on that store, but it's typical pricing, in my opinion. It's
right. Yeah. Hey, if you're a trophy hunter, though, the trophies for the Forspoken don't look really hard. They look more time consuming. Imagine that Square Enix gave you something grindy, not hard, just grindy. Nothing tied to difficulty, but lots of like collect all of these and all of these and all of these. Yeah. How much for the manhole? That's none of your business.
Yeah, I feel like that's just trophies in general nowadays. Like that's just
actually for open world. Like as soon as when I was playing the demo and I realized that there was all these collectibles, I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be a trophy. That's gonna be like mind numbing. Ugh.
Yeah, I like the look of them. I don't like the price. Yeah, I kind of agree. I like that they're very minimalistic. Yeah, it's not ridiculous. A couple other things here. Take a look at this is weird because I'm going to show you B-roll, but to get the point, you actually got to hear it. So this is a modding community called Sunamods. They have fully voiced the original Final Fantasy XIV in a mod form. Echo S7 mod is available online. Sunamods, TSUNAMODS took the very, very long script and voiced the whole thing with high tech, fantastic vocal and tech quality. All the minor and major cast members are well-trained actors with fantastic vocal and tech quality. Their quote, not mine. It doesn't use the original English script. They instead use the retranslation of the Japanese script that kind of cut some of the foo-bars in the script or bad translations. But they didn't expect this to blow up, so there's a lot more swearing than you probably remember when you played through the original Final Fantasy VII last. So there you go. It is actually very neat. I may not be a fan of all the voices, but I am a super fan of all the work that goes into this.
Yeah, I actually follow this. I've been following this for a while. There's like a thing called Seventh Heaven that you can get on PC that will mod your Steam version.
Yep.
And there's other stuff too, but this one's been working for a minute. I think he's even working on like higher res models and stuff too.
Cool.
Like to look more like the remake. Not like exactly the remake, but to make it look like feel more like that. And then you can get like hard mode stuff. There's like I think it's like a next level threat or something like that, where you can get like a harder version of the game, which is kind of fun. So it's pretty cool.
There's not going to be a C&D incoming on this one.
No, this has been up for a while.
All they did was put voices to something that already exists.
Yeah, Seventh Heavens existed for
a long
decade,
time.
a decade at least. Yeah.
So the Gamer.com put together the top 10 Final Fantasy games with the best story. So just narratively, the best story. I'm not going to go through. I'll give you the whole list, but we're not going to stop and talk about every single one of them. We're definitely going to talk about number one and whether you agree or not, and whether your favorite is where you think it should be. Final Fantasy V comes in at number 10. 9 is, ironically, at 9. Final Fantasy X is at 8. 8. Final Fantasy VI beats it out at 7. Final Fantasy IV edges that one out into the 6th spot. Final Fantasy XII comes in at 5. Final Fantasy 15 at 4. The 3rd spot goes to Final Fantasy 8. Final Fantasy VII comes in at number 2. And the number 1 spot goes to Final Fantasy 13. Cameron Miller is the author of the piece. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't know how the gamers lists work, but like on MMO Bomb, we collaboratively do most lists. Every once in a while, an author will just post one, but we collaboratively do lists, and then obviously there's just one author's name on it. I don't know if that's the case, if this is just Cameron's personal 10 list, or... Kronos, what do you think of number 13 in the... Let me say something first.
Because obviously you want me to go first. Because go ahead.
I don't like 13, the whole series, as a game. As a story, I actually thought it was pretty damn good. Just the game isn't a lot of fun. The series of games aren't a lot of fun. And there are some MacGuffins and, big baddie you didn't know was behind the scenes moments, typical Final Fantasy tropes.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was a terrible story. I would never put it at number 1. Ever.
No.
Ever.
Hasn't even cracked my top 5.
I don't know if if I consider any Final Fantasy story that bad. Probably some of the older ones, just because they're like kind of basic and really it's more nostalgic than anything, than more like deep. Some of these I think are really low. I think honestly like Final Fantasy V being like right at 10, it probably makes sense. But like when you get down to it, like 13, I don't know, man. I don't like my stories to have like extra reading material that I have to like go out of my way to even like understand what the hell's going on. Also, like I feel like with the way he's ordered it, has he played the end of these games? Because some of the ones he has high, I feel like the endings are kind of like
Final Fantasy Final
8?
Fantasy 15 being at 4.
So I like Final Fantasy 15 story.
I did too, but it's just not number 4.
It's not. I don't think so either. Final Fantasy 8 being that high? Okay, look, Final Fantasy 8 Disc 1, amazing. You play like the first disc of story, it's super intriguing. There's a lot going on.
All the way up into the assassination attempt on Adia scene.
Yeah, after
then it's
disc
just
1, that goes off the rails. Also, Tark might get mad at me. Final Fantasy IV, I love Final Fantasy IV. I think the first 80% of the story is awesome. When we start getting about moon whales and moon people, and like it gets really off the rails. And I love 4. I like 4 a lot. Even 7 can get kind of confusing at times. They all have flaws, but 13 being this high is just weird to me. But again, it's their opinion. I'm not, we can. I argue about this stuff with my friends all the time, and it's more fun.
Oh
than
yeah,
anything.
I mean, but their opinion is flat out wrong. Like it's just, I mean, it's just. Yeah. Like, you could say there's no fence sitting on this one, Takao. Like, your opinion's just wrong.
Like to me, it's wrong. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Kronos, you're a Marvel person. This is like saying Captain Marvel is the best MCU movie. Okay, it's not. It's just not. You can have an opinion, but that opinion is wrong. And oh my goodness, can I give my top 5?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, number 5, Final Fantasy IV. I'm biased. Yes, I love it. And I think it's awesome.
But right now you're just rating flat out story. No systems, graphics, nothing. Just story.
Just story. So at number 4, Final Fantasy VI. I think the Empire struggle. Yes, it's tired out, but I thought it was awesome. Kefka destroying the world, all the little nuances with all the different characters, stories, awesome. Final Fantasy XII is number 3. I felt the political intrigue really had me gripped, and I love that game for its story. Final Fantasy VII sits at number 2. It's just an all-time great. And then number 1 is Final Fantasy X. The journey, the interactions, the twists with Seymour, and the religion in there, it will always hold a special memory for me as far as its story. So that's my top 5.
See, I would look at your list and go, what you said, Kronos. I don't agree, but I don't think he's that far off the mark either. Like, there's one that you put on there that probably doesn't make my top 5, and that is 12. As much as I did like the political intrigue, I thought it was really sloppily and lazily done. It was like somebody, to me, writing a political intrigue story that really hadn't experienced or researched political intrigue. Not that it was bad, it just wouldn't cross my top 5. And my order might change for you in the top 5, but I agree. I'm not going to put them in spots, but I agree with you. Final Fantasy VI goes there. Final Fantasy IV goes there. Final Fantasy VII goes there. Final Fantasy X goes there. So the only question is, like, what do I put in the spot? Not necessarily the exact spot, but in that top 10 list that isn't 12 without, I'm assuming the MMOs weren't allowed to be on this list because of convoluted and multiple storylines, multiple main storylines in those. And evolving storylines. Yeah. So I probably jump in and I do bring Final Fantasy V up into those top 5. 5 has a great story, but because it's lack of a release here until much, much later, I think it's underappreciated.
I assume they're not even counting sequels either, right? I mean, I would assume because honestly, I think if you count 10 too, it kind of brings 10 down a bit. But I love if you just take 10 standalone and pretend that doesn't exist. I think 10 probably is number 1. 7's probably my number 2, followed by like 6. Then it gets kind of like dicey. I think after that, I'm not a big 12 fan. I think they missed the mark in some ways, kind of similar to Mike. I like a lot of parts of it. I like the world. I like the judges. I think it's really cool, but I think they just like don't use enough of it to make it interesting. And there are characters I just find absurdly annoying. So after that, I don't know. Like 15 might be like my number 5 because I probably might put 4.
15, I think, is just outside for me. I think it falls in at 6 or 7.
Because I think just purely story. If you just take the story from 15, I actually find it pretty intriguing. I know some stuff gets convoluted though, for sure. And there's some extracurricular stuff in that as well, which I don't really appreciate.
100%, yeah.
So, but I think the top 3 for me are like, I don't think I can move them.
If they
9 might be up there too.
Would Tactics be in your top 5?
Oh, okay. Hold on. If we're including Tactics,
no.
Tactics is number 1. Tactics is number 1.
Tactics
I totally. You know what? I would bring 9 in. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about 9. Thank you, Tino. Yeah. 9 or whoever said 9. I totally spaced on 9. I would replace 12 with 9. Yeah. I loved 9.
That's
story.
I think that might be my problem. I've never really played 9, so
yeah. And again, just story here. It's not one of my favorite Final Fantasies overall.
Well, yeah, if we were going
story wise,
if it was overall, 15 wouldn't even like breathe into the top 5.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey, last bit, and then we'll go do Love It or Leave It and call it a day. I got something special for you, boys. I brought it here just for you. Lara Croft's Manor, now available in Power Wash Simulator. Go all over Croft Manor, cleaning stuff up, cleaning artifacts, and hearing that satisfying ding for an IP that Square Enix has nothing to do with anymore.
Yeah.
It's now added to Square's Power Wash Oh, look at that. January 31st. You'll be able to catch that in a little over a week. Tark just shaking his head at me for adding it to the show.
You shake your head, but if you look at the Steam reviews for this game, it's probably better than most of their games.
I'm absolutely dumbfounded by this. Like, it's an
I might have to get
ASMR
this and
game.
stream it here on some
weird.
point. I might have to get this and stream it on here at some point.
So weird.
Let's head over and do Love It or Leave It. I bumped 2 sound effects there, so you gentlemen can't hear it, but that would have been cheering and crickets at the same time.
Nice.
So those of you listening on the podcast versions, that was for you. Love It or Leave It is the way we end every episode of the Relic Grind. Here is where I give you something Square Enix related. You tell me whether you love it, want more of it, or leave it. Cast it aside, never see it again, and I get to pick the topic. And today, gentlemen, I want you to pick one of each. From the discussions we talked about up above here, regardless of whether you think it's a 0 or a 10 as far as it's happening, looking at the list, what is the rumored game that you absolutely love and needs to happen for you, and the rumored game that just, nope, leave it, set it aside. Go ahead, Tark.
The one I would love would be Hironobu Sakaguchi Presents Final Fantasy IX Remake. Not only just for the remake, but Sakaguchi presenting it, really kind of coming back to
like
Square
getting
Enix.
the blessing.
Yeah, getting the blessing, kind of being, maybe be part of it as well, because we know he's been playing 14 and he wants to actually work with Yoshi P. Seeing him come back after being really away for so long, I really want this one to be true, so this is my love it. As far as my leave it, I think you can kind of guess it was 10-3. Like, I could care less. It's whatever's.
Kronos.
Yeah, 10-3 is my leave it for sure. I just want to
spoiler, it's mine too.
I want to say that the rumor I love is the War of the Lions, but I'm going to be really pissed if it's not a tactical game.
No,
but I'm going to stick with that. Just hope that it is a tactical game.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to go with Love It, Final Fantasy IX Remake. And I think we're definitely getting that. There's just too many things over the last 2 years that point to it. It's just, will it be this fall or not? That's the part for me that's up in the air. I love that one. To be different, obviously, I'm not super keen on a 10-3, but I would play it. I didn't mind 10-2 to the extent a lot of people do. I actually found like the dress system compelling.
He didn't say who would buy it, because I'm sure all 3 of us would buy it.
Oh, yeah.
We say this. We talked about this before.
I know. The leave it for me would be the World of Final Fantasy 2. I loved World of Final Fantasy, and I would buy a World of Final Fantasy 2. Let's not pretend that I wouldn't. I didn't like Lawn. I didn't like Rain. And honestly, I just feel like that's not needed. You got a whole plate. This year is packed already for Square. If any of these are true, it just further packs the plate, and I think that one could go if I needed to leave one. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Now, Faye is going to be streaming. She's going to be doing some, I believe it's Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate, whatever. I don't know, something like that. She was doing it this past week. So she will be live. Give us a few minutes, chat. Don't go anywhere. We'll move things over and get Faye live here. We'll be back, of course, next week with another episode of Relic Grind. Until then, Kronos, where can everybody find you?
Same as always, Twitter. I'm going to be enjoying football this weekend, hopefully. And Ultimate comes out on Tuesday. Yeah, definitely rooting for the Cowboys. Actually, I probably will be rooting for the Cowboys. Sad as that is.
Tark.
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all at Tarkoth Gaming. And to the one person that put a bid on my house, damn you. Damn you. Now I have a 50-50 chance. So sad.
Sad face. I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me right there at Magic Man 1, but more importantly, follow at RC Radio, and you'll know every time we go live with a podcast, whether it's this one, Gaming Gumbo, or any of our streams. Until next time, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers. Later.